As of January 2023, Chinese citizens had visa-free or visa-free on arrival access to 85 countries and territories, ranking the Chinese passport 59th in terms of travel freedom. Now, St. Kitts and Nevis, for example, had 162 visa-free or visa-free on arrival countries and territories that you could travel to, twice the number that China had. China is spitting out more self-made billionaires than any place in the world, but the population is the highest also. Now, this is the total number, not per capita. You can get residency in China by setting up a company there. China's GDP per capita is right at 13,000 US dollars a year. China's seeing a huge growth in this GDP per capita over the last 20 years. And technically, military service with the PLA is required for all Chinese citizens. All 18-year-old males have to register themselves for the government authorities in a way similar to the selective service system of the United States. Now, local governments have recruitment quotas, and registered citizens are not called when the actual quotas are met. These registered citizens automatically become reserves and are required to attend short training sessions periodically before age 22. They would no longer be liable for service after age 22. Those who are aged 17 to 18 can also voluntarily register for the draft. In practice, a mandatory military service has not been implemented since 1949, as the People's Liberation Army has been able to recruit sufficient numbers voluntarily. Now, that really beats the U.S. because the U.S., had the draft back in the 1960s all the way up to the 1970s for the Vietnam War. China, you hear a lot of adverse stuff about China with Taiwan and stuff, but China really doesn't get in many wars, okay? They seem to stay, kind of sovereign. They don't do what the U.S. does in wars all the time. So your chances of probably getting drafted are a lot less than they would be in the U.S. Now, the U.S. has no extradition treaty with China. This means that a person suspected of or convicted of a crime in the U.S., but who made it to China can't be apprehended or forced to return to the U.S. to face trial or punishment. So if you've got some sort of real problem and you want to kind of get away from that, this might be a real good place to go with the potential of making a lot of money. Now, obviously, they're going to do some sort of background check. How strict, that's going to be dependent on what you did, okay? So, that's the key thing there. Now, the standard corporate income tax rate is 25% applicable to resident enterprises and non-resident enterprises with income generating establishment in China. There is no separate capital gains tax in China. Capital gains and losses of companies generally are combined with other operating income and taxed at the corporate tax rate of 25%. Now, the individual income tax rate is as high as 45%, and this is one bad thing about China. It is very socialistic. Tax authorities will collect penalties, unpaid taxes, and underpayment of taxes at a rate of 0.05% per day. Additionally, a fine that is no less than 50%, but no more than 5 times the amount of unpaid taxes will also be imposed. Now, China does not allow dual citizenship. This is one real big disadvantage of China. If you're going there to get a second passport down the road, I would advise you not to do it if you're going there for residency purposes and you want to make a lot of money, because you can make a lot of money there. You're going to pay a lot in taxes, but the population says in itself. I mean, you've got a lot of wealthy people there. Now, you also have a lot of millionaires there, okay? But the point is, you're going to pay out a lot of your money in income taxes. So if you can't deal with socialism, you're going to have to think twice about it. But the population of China is 1,455,000. Immigration to China alongside the application process for Chinese citizenship is not that complex. However, the authorities will have to make some verification and collaborate with international organizations. More than that, foreigners will have to prove that they have relatively integrated in society and have knowledge of the Chinese culture, language, traditions, and customs. You have a huge local population you can sell your product or service to. This is one of the biggest advantages of China. And China and India both have the 2 largest populations of people of any country in the world. The only problem with India is it does have a high population, but it's got so many, it's got like over 1,000 different languages. And it's very hard to actually work in India, a lot harder than it is in China. Chinese are big savers, so you'll always have a real lucrative market to sell your product or service to. Also, folks, if you want to legally get around paying high income taxes or how to get a second passport as quick as 45 days to do 3 things, hit the subscribe button right on your screen right here, and you get new videos automatically as they come out. And number 2 is I would like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, put it below. Number 3 is go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, and just ask for some help. Now, but remember, there are 8 billion people in the world if you're doing your business offshore. So if you're doing your business like this, you don't have to be paying 45% of your money in taxes and living and working in China. You know, you can be in St. Kitts where there's no income tax, no capital gains tax, no estate tax, no inheritance tax, and be in a free society where people speak English. And I'm going to tell you something, folks, you can do it more efficiently in a small country like St. Kitts than you can in China if you're doing it offshore, okay? Because you've got 8 billion people to market your product to. If you're doing international in China, if you're doing it inside the country, you're looking at roughly about 1.4 billion people. Now, some problems with China is there is a lot of corruption, and the rule of law is not good, and there's a lot of human rights abuses there. I mean, you don't have to listen to me. You can go on the internet and find that out. They've got one of the highest, if not the highest, execution rates for capital punishment of any place in the world. But you got to remember that figure is high too, because you got a high number of people. But at the same time, there is corruption, and you can be judged for the wrong judgment. Okay, and that's the key thing that you're going to have to look for. And my own self, I would feel a lot more comfortable if I'm doing my stuff internationally by far, living in a country like St. Kitts. But I'm bringing this out to you because some people want a huge local population. You're not going to get that with St. Kitts. There's only 50,000 people in St. Kitts and Nevis. Okay, but if you're doing your business internationally, it won't make any difference. If you do, thinking about moving there, I would advise you not to buy property there because there's a huge glut in the property market. You can go miles and miles and miles and see empty buildings that people have invested in and never moved to. With the tax brackets as high as 45%, you're going to have to get used to very socialistic practices because they've got strict income tax practices there. That if you don't abide by them, you can get thrown in prison for many years. And so, this is something that you need to think about if you're going to go there. With inconsistent standards between rural areas and big cities, the healthcare system in China has been rated 144th in the world by the World Health Organization. The country spends 5.5% of its GDP on health and has a relatively low number of doctors at 1.6 doctors per 1,000 population. Now, 95% plus of Chinese citizens have public health insurance, significantly higher than the U.S. However, even with public insurance, patients in China need to pay some fees and copay costs. Now, I've gone through this many times before. This is something you really need to think about when you're going to a place. I would advise people to go to a place that you're thinking about not just residing there, but also getting citizenship. And I've always told people that, remember that a good fast track program has these following standards if you're looking to get residency along with citizenship. And that is, get a citizenship program that you can get as long as you have no civil or criminal past. A lot of residency by investment countries don't go by their statutory requirements after the minimum residency requirements have been made, therefore messing up your plans for a passport in a reasonable amount of time. By getting a St. Kitts and Nevis passport, you don't run into this kind of problem because St. Kitts passport you can get as quick as 60 days. Remember, St. Kitts doesn't have an income tax, no capital gains tax, no estate tax, no inheritance tax. It's all English speaking, man. This makes it a lot better. Number 2 is make sure the country that you're applying for has no military requirements to get the passport. You don't have this in St. Kitts. You're going to have that somewhat in China. Okay, they can call you in. They can bring that draft in. Okay. Now, we'll say that China is better than the U.S., though, on the things I went through earlier. You're more likely to get drafted in the U.S. than you are in China, okay? And number 3 is make sure the tax system that is in place for the country, it has either a territory or a pure tax haven status that doesn't tax worldwide income. or investment income. Now, St. Kitts passport not only doesn't tax income inside the country, it doesn't tax income outside the country either. And number 4 is make sure if there's a language requirement that you're already fluent in that language before applying, or don't apply. One thing about St. Kitts is there's no language requirement that you have to take to, if you speak English, you're going to get along fine in the country. Now, China, has a bad tax system, okay? You're going to have a hard time finding anybody that speaks English there, okay? So if you want a place that has zero income tax, English speaking, and you want to market, and you can market your product or service to 8 billion people in the world, St. Kitts is by far a lot better choice, okay? And number 5 is always verify that dual citizenship is allowed, or don't engage in that program. St. Kitts does allow dual citizenship with all countries. Now, China does not. You're going to have to give up all your other passports to engage in a second passport with China. You want to get, number 6 is you want to get into a passport that has as many visa-free or visa-free countries that you can have, but having the requirements I've just mentioned. As I mentioned before, China has about half the number of visa-free countries that you can go to as St. Kitts. And you don't have to give up your second passport or multiple passports with St. Kitts. Number 7 is always remember that a lot of countries reserve the most lucrative business opportunities like insurance, real estate, and other business opportunities to citizens. So if it's going to take you years to get your citizenship in China, you could be barred out of that business that you're involved with until you get citizenship, okay? That's a huge thing you need to think about. And with St. Kitts, you're going to get the passport as quick as 60 days. So you can literally get started in the business and not be part of those business opportunities. And number 8 is also when you move to a new country, when you don't know the language, it's going to take you 3 times longer to get anything done. Time is money. Folks, if you're trying to learn Mandarin, it's going to throw you off from making money, okay? This is another thing a lot of people just don't think about. Folks, if you're making at least 150,000 US dollars a year, or you got a net worth at least 1 million US, and you want to legally get around high paying taxes and how to get a second passport as quick as 60 days, do 3 things. Hit the subscribe button at the right of your screen right here, and you get new videos automatically as they come out. And number 2 is I would like to hear from you. If you got a question or comment, put it below. And number 3 is go to our website, www.citizenshipquickly.com, and just ask for some help. And I look forward to talking to you on the next video. Take care.